For the Earth Mother.
Great tragedy has rocked the Tauren tribes and shaken their once stalwart devotion to the Horde. A disagreement between the new Orc war chief Garrosh Hellscream and the beloved Tauren chieftain Cairn Bloodhoof led to a duel that ended in Cairn's death. With his loss, the vile matriarch Magatha Grimtotem launched a murderous attack, attempting to seize control of Thunder Bluff for herself. However, Cairn's brave son, Bane Bloodhoof, successfully repelled the attack and banished the surviving Grin Totem to the farthest reaches of the land. Under Bane's hopeful leadership, the Tauren people now seek to heal their wounds and restore the balance between the various factions of the Horde. To this end, a new generation of Tauren Sunwalkers has arisen to lead their people into the light of a new dawn and the promise of rebirth. As a proud tribesman of Mulgore, you must uphold the honor of your people and safeguard the lands of your ancestors.
So just ignore the text that was going on just now from that chief. That doesn't happen until later. So, welcome to Mulgore. And say hi to our Tauren, Papaneeks. Yes, I know. Look, I couldn't resist when I remembered that they had this skin look here. I couldn't help myself. Also, I went with the horns that make him look like the not the mascot, the logo of the Chicago Bulls, because that's totally the horns. Before I talk about the Tauren, I should note something, and this is something that's actually really cool about WoW. In many different places, the sky will usually reflect the real life time. So, if you're wondering, why is the sky in WoW like night? Well, that's because it's late at night. And usually, in places like Mulgore, it'll reflect whether or not you are playing at night or in the daytime. And this can lead to some very beautiful looks. I'll probably record this part and then wait until daytime during the next time I record to try and show you what this place looks like when the sun is out. Because, oh my gosh, is Mulgore beautiful. So, the Tauren. So, I made a last-minute change while we were doing the Orc Starter Zone. So originally I was going to have our Tauren here be a druid, because it's relevant to talking about the Tauren people and their culture. But I decided to go with a shaman because when I re-looked into their history, it's just as relevant. So I'm trying to decide where to start here, gameplay-wise or lore-wise. I guess maybe gameplay-wise. So, the Taurens are actually one of the best type of races for gameplay, especially if you're going to be playing a tough, like, class that can be able to do tank. So, they have War Stomp, which is an AoE stun, which stuns up to 5 enemies within 8 yards for a couple of seconds. Very nice. They do have their Herbalism skill increase, which makes a lot of sense. They have Brawn. Critical strike damage and healing is increased by 2%. Very nice. They have Nature Resistance. Reduces nature damage taken by 1%. They also have Endurance. Increases your stamina by 1, and obviously it does scale with level. So, they have more health, or stamina as it's called in this game, than any other race in the game. They have an AoE stun, and they have more critical strike damage and healing. Plus they have nature damage resistance. You can see why they are excellent choices for classes to tank. This is why you'll usually see a lot of Tauren warriors, or as of going back to vanilla, druids, because a bear Tauren druid is not a bad choice. And it makes sense. I'll talk about that in a moment. You'll also see Tauren paladins. Now, that was not a thing until Cataclysm. Cataclysm is when, as the narrator said there, the Sunwalkers became a part of the Tauren, and that's how paladins, Taurens, could become paladins at that point. Then you were, because back then, as I mentioned, when we went through the Blood Elf Starter Zone, the only race on the Horde as a Burning Crusade could be a paladin. But then Cataclysm came around, and all of a sudden you could play Tauren paladins. And I will say, they may not look that great when it comes to the transmogs, but it is still cool to see a giant Tauren as a paladin. Partly because it makes some of the stuff look bigger, like the weapons and such. And seeing Ashbringer on a Tauren, you can even see on some of my older videos in my paladin playthrough I did for Legion. Tauren Death Knights is also a pretty good choice, since they will have more health, and considering how Blood Death Knights play, that usually makes sense. And you can make a Tauren Monk. That could help as well. And I have seen those. I have seen Tauren Monks, and it just makes perfect sense as well. So, let's see. Obviously, you can't make a Tauren Demon Hunter, even though there is a joke about that. So the thing about Taurens, when it comes to like the fantasy of what to play. So the reason I was torn between a druid or a shaman is because culturally in their lore, and just a reminder, ignore the text. That doesn't take place until later. That's a quest we'll do later on. The Taurens are one of the original races on Azeroth. There are very few races that are original natives to Azeroth, and the Tauren are one of them. They have very strong connections to Azeroth, which is, when it comes to, on a natural level, being connected to the elements, which is why they're very powerful shamans. Tauren shamans are very strong in lore, and it's very common to have lots of Tauren be shaman. It's also very common to have lots of Tauren be druids. Believe it or not, the Taurens were druids quite a while before the Night Elves were. Now, this is sort of contradicted in Legion, however, the line that I've heard said is that, in Legion, was that when Cenarius told Illidan that Malfurion would be the first druid, I think he was specifically talking about either the first druid in general or just the first druid amongst their people. Because the thing is, even the book tells this, the Tauren discovered druidism naturally because of how connected they were to Azeroth. Though I believe in the Chronicles book, it said that Cenarius actually taught druidism to the Tauren people. So the way I see it is this. He basically was like, so Tauren, you guys are wonderful, so here's druidism, here's what it is, have fun with it, bye. And he just left, and the Taurens basically learned about more and more about druidism on their own, without Cenarius basically, personally training any of them to be a druid, like Malfurion, for example. And this is part of the reason why I want to, my main max level druid is a Tauren, and it just makes perfect sense. Back in vanilla, the only horde race that you could have be a druid was a Tauren. Though druids were not exactly desired back in vanilla, which is something I'm glad they've changed, so. But, yeah, there's a number of things when it comes to the Tauren as a people and as a culture, and why certain things make sense. As I mentioned, druidism and shamanism are both, equally embedded into their history and their culture, with their connections, and you'll hear them talk about the Earth Mother. Now, the thing is, we don't fully know what the Earth Mother actually is, or who exactly that is. Some of us assume it's Therazane, though that may be... I have my doubts on that, but they've never come out and said, this is who the Earth Mother is. So we still don't know to this day who exactly the Earth Mother is. But the Taurens are one of the more beloved races on both sides. They're very well connected with many of the Alliance races, especially the Night Elves. You know, a lot of the Cenarian Circle is not, is Druids and Night Elves. In fact, you could probably say just a little more than half of the Druids on Azeroth are Tauren, just because they've known it longer than anyone, including the Night Elves. I would even say Hamul Rune Totem is a more beloved druid these days than Malfurion is. Malfurion is more well known and is more, iconic, partly because he was personally trained by Cenarius and all that. But Hamul is just so much more likable these days, especially considering how often Malfurion will just do or say things that just irritate me. And Hamul's never been that way. So the thing that I ended up noticing that made me want to change this is I noticed that we had a couple other druids coming up in this series, and I decided, you know what, I don't think having 3 druids and 1 shaman is all that great to do in the series. I did have a shaman for the troll, but that was very short. I feel like I need to even it out. So later on, our Night Elf and our Worgen are going to be druids, and I decided to change our Tauren here from a druid to a shaman. So, anyways. And I will be talking more so about the likes of, Bane, Cairn, Magatha, in due time. For now, let's go ahead and pick up our first quest here.
Well met.
What you see here is the work of the Quillbore, young one. Year after year, they have encroached on our village. The great cataclysm finally drove them from their dens to spread like locusts across the land, and now you see the result. My own mother, dead from their savagery. Today you are of age. Today you will take up your weapon and fight for the tribe and avenge the Great Mother. Follow the path to the east and find my son, Groll. He will lead you in our strike against the Quillbore.
Walk with the Earth Mother.
Alright. So now... give me a moment. Okay. By the way, in case you're curious... so, that's the old set from Molten Core back in the day. You can see I haven't exactly been trying to get this set. Even though it's not a bad-looking set, it's from Molten Core. That should tell you all you need to know. Blech. Boring. It's okay. That's not bad. Need one more piece for that, though. Same for this one, too. That sort of works on a Tauren. That's not bad, either. Can't even see the bottom half of that mask. So, are you noticing something about these sets on a Tauren? A lot of them will have a problem trying to put... look at this, for example. You notice something about trying to put these things on a Tauren? The long necks. Needless to say, putting headpieces on a Tauren at times can be difficult. Now, sometimes it'll actually kind of fit and work. But let's just say that sometimes there are pieces that just are not really able to work on a Tauren. Now, that, of course, can work, but that's just a headpiece that floats on. A lot of things will just, you know, when it comes to transmogs and mounts and stuff, will scale very largely on a Tauren because of how large Tauren are. Taurens are like 7 to 9 feet tall. They are huge. Yeah, that does still work. But you'll notice, like, sometimes these will be stretched out because of the, you know, the snouts of the Tauren. Here's the classic Blackwing lair set. Now, keep in mind that, well, yeah. This was back when Tauren could be shamans back in vanilla. And it does still work, but you can tell, like, you see how that's stretched out like that because it has to try and fit around the Tauren's head. Now, here's the heritage armor. I have a separate video showing that with the totem on the back. So, anyways, just in case you were curious about what they look like. Okay. Of the elements. I'll sort this out, obviously, off camera. Just kind of try and get some stuff on here before we really get underway with the questing. Okay, and then a neck piece. Okay. Alright, so now we have to follow the path. The moon. Just wanted to take a moment to... Hold on. There's going to be a quest where it's going to send me up, like, way up there. And I'll show you, like... Try to show you all of Mulgore from up there. But then again, I kind of would rather wait till the daytime when the sun's out to just kind of really help show it off. Hold on, I just realized we don't have our chauffeur. But for now, that's okay.
What brings you here?
Welcome to your first true test as a Tauren. Behold, Papaneeks, the very presence of the bristleback is a blight. Nothing is left in their wake but corpses and barren land. Cap Narosh could become what we see here in but a few days, unless we stand and fight. This will be your rite of strength. The first ceremony of a Tauren brave. Go into the heart of Thornsdale and kill Bristleback Quilboar, and then return to me.
Farewell.
Back to playing a shaman. Feel very at home. Now, it is true that I do main an enhancement shaman. However, I have been playing Elemental on my Valpera shaman. And so I'm very, you know, okay with spending more time with that spec, trying to learn it more, really get more comfortable with it. Especially since these days a lot of people just... They're more welcoming of seeing elemental shamans instead of enhancement, which makes me very sad. Because I always feel like I'm having to go up against people's, you know, expectations or perceptions, and I'm not really able to get a fair shot simply because I am playing a enhancement shaman, you know? But that's why I was like, okay, the other couple of shaman I have, they're going to be elemental and resto. That's it. Plus, I've learned it makes it far easier to handle from a gear perspective because, well, elemental and resto use intellect, whereas enhancement uses agility. So you have to carry separate gear for both for both agility and intellect, and it just becomes very, well, annoying in that regard. Whereas carrying the same gear for both specs, because the same stat, is much more accommodating. By the way, notice that Tauren here are using guns. This is actually not a big deal. Some people may see this and think it's a big deal. It really isn't. Because even though they have a very tribal, ancestral type of culture, and may not have very highly advanced technology, even, you know, mainly because they didn't need to grow and develop that kind of highly advanced technology, even though they are very smart and capable of doing so. They just didn't really need to. And they've only been really, like, introduced to things like guns, like, within the past, like, decade or so, at the time that this was going on in Cataclysm. But at the same time, this is a setting with spaceships and various other different highly advanced technology things. So guns really are not that big of a deal just in this setting in general at all anyways. I mean, for goodness sakes, hunters use guns. So it's like, okay. And
Greetings.
You have fought well, Papaneeks. We may yet be saved.
get those just to have them.
Despite their size, the bristleback greatly outnumber us. A pack ambush can easily overwhelm even the largest Tauren. Many new initiates have taken up arms to defend our home. Some have given up their lives, but others have been captured alive. Please find their cages and free them. The battle should keep the Quilboar
Be
distracted.
careful.
That's right, guys. Fight bravely while I free them. By the way, in case you want to see the stun, boom! But they are apparently immune to that. So this is the initial tutorial zone, Camp Narash. We'll be doing stuff here, and then we'll be making our way to Mulgore and making our way to Bloodhoof Village. I'll, of course, be talking about the difference of what this was like here compared to what it was like back in Classic.
How may I aid you?
Thanks to you, our people are free to fight for our home. We have struck a great blow against the Quilboar here. I will stay here and hold the line, but you need to move on. Seek Adana Thunderhorn. She has taken a few braves to the southwest to root out the rest of the bristleback.
Ancestors watch over you.
Okay. I've got Flame Shock now.
How may I aid you?
More trials lay ahead. I hope you are prepared. One of the first lessons that you should learn, Papaneeks, is to never underestimate your prey. While we were distracted by the attack of Camp Narash, more of the bristlebacks swept in unnoticed and stole a cache of our rifles. You can see them to the south now, filling the air with lead. This is your rite of courage. Brave the hail of gunfire, hunt the bristleback gun thieves, and bring back our rifles. It is my role to test our young initiates on the ways of the hunt, and that hasn't changed. Today, the Quillboar are our prey. Knowing the ways of your prey is another aspect of the hunt. In the lands they come from, Quillboar live in the shade and protection of huge thorned roots. When they move, their shaman's seed grow new roots for them to live in. These thorns mar the land and choke out other life, turning the earth around them barren. Go to the south and stop these thorn callers before they have a chance to continue, Papaneeks.
Walk with the Earth Mother.
And of course, like other tutorial zones, these are all yellow, even though they should be hostile. They should be red, but of course this is a tutorial zone. Ding. So, you remember what I said earlier, back in the Orc Starter Zone, about the Quillboar and Razorfen Crow? Yeah. This is very much what you'll see in those dungeons. Tauren Paladin.
Peace, friend.
Well done, Papaneeks. Respect your prey and the danger that it carries, but never fear it. In fear, you become prey yourself. With the corruptor slain, the Earth Mother will mend her own wounds in due time. The roots are not meant to thrive here, and will wither. Balance will return. There are more threats to be dealt with here. The bristleback are taming wild boars to be used against us. These armored battle boars have been abused beyond hope of recovery. They must be put down, for our safety and their peace. Go to the pens and to the south and slay them. Return to me afterwards. We must do more than simply hunt boars here. The eyesore that has been left upon the land must be purged. To give them a wild thirst for blood, the battle boars are force-fed raw flesh. Take this torch and use it to burn the troughs of meat and gore to cinders.
Winds be at your back.
So yeah, usually when they are talking about the Earth Mother, they are referring to Azeroth itself. Now, given what we now know about, the Titan Soul, it's very possible they actually could just simply be referring to Azeroth. And either they know that, or they don't. I'm not entirely sure. Now you may think that the Tauren are very, I guess I can just call it what it is, native, and it's something a lot of people have noticed and acknowledged, is that how the Tauren are very clearly, a play on, like, I guess you could say Native American, culture and such, I think. And so a lot of people will usually see that, think that, and, think certain things about the Tauren people in that regard. Because of that, perceived, I guess, comparison or stereotype or whatever you want to, label it as or describe it as. I personally think they have spent so long, being connected to, Azeroth from a natural perspective, in that sense, because of how much both Druidism and Shamanism are a part of their culture, embedded into their culture for such a long time, that they would know that, that they have, just come to know that on their own, or they just simply referred to it as that, well, but not necessarily referring to it to what it literally is.
Well met.
Good work, Papaneeks. These beasts could have been a greater threat than the Quilboar themselves if we had not taken action now. You've not only wiped the boar pens clean, but put a stop to a horrible desecration. Well done. Chief Squealer Thornmantle leads these Quilboar. It was he that set upon Great Mother Hawkwind and took her life. Leading the attack on Camp Narash, he fled and hid afterwards. But we have found him. He lurks to the west within his foul den of thorns, fending off any braves that we send in after him. You've proven yourself a brave defender of our people. Kill Thornmantle and bring his mane back to Chief Hawkwind, in honor of our Great Mother.
Very well.
Okay. Let's take a moment. Get rid of that. Let's see. Because there are some pieces I just don't have on. And it's like, oh, I finally have a piece for that slot in my gear. It's like, I still don't have feet. Though what's funny is that, you see the hooves and you're like, oh, are you really going to care about feet? Well, maybe not from a transmog perspective, but from a gear perspective, yes. Of course. Okay. So yeah, that guy we first met, the first Tauren we talked to, yeah, that was his mother that he was mourning. And so we're now about to go face this guy who is the one who killed her. So he's going to be very grateful. I shouldn't. Click that. Don't click that. Thanks. Though I really should move that somewhere else. There we go. I'll put that there. Have it be R. Alright, so this is his hideout. Squealer, take this land. Tauren will burn. And he's dead. And we have now avenged the Great Mother of this tribe and this village. obviously it's not a village as big as, just in comparison to Bloodhoof Village, or obviously Thunderbluff, but... By the way, Pandoran. Monk trainer.
Hail.
Have you completed your trials, young one? The chief of the Bristleback is slain. Great Mother Hawkwind's spirit has been avenged. The camp is safe, and the Quilboar driven off. All thanks to you, young one. You have my personal thanks for what you have done for my mother, my son, and for all of us. It is now time to put Great Mother Hawkwind to rest. Lay the final offering at her feet, Papaneeks, and we will say our goodbye.
We shall meet again.
Earth Mother, into your arms we give one of our own. She is Unea Hawkwind, my mother and great mother to us all, the wisest of our tribe. May her spirit fly to you swiftly. May the winds carry her gently, and the grass whisper her name. Watch over her as she has watched over us. Let her look down on us with joy, through the eternal gaze of Anash and Musha, until we too join her in death. For we are all born of you, and shall all return to you.
And there she is. This is a very common funeral pyre amongst the Tauren people. We'll be seeing some more of these as we go through Mulgore.
What brings you here?
There is balance in all things, as Great Mother, Hawkwind's spirit takes its final journey. But you will begin your first. Today you have undertaken a rite of passage far more difficult than we ask of most of our youths. Be proud. Now it is time for you to continue on your journey. To the west, beyond our burial ground, you will find a path winding up the mesa. Follow it to the top, and speak with Diami Windsor. Walk with the Earth Mother, friend. You will always be welcome here.
May the eternal sun shine upon thee.
So this is the quest I mentioned earlier about how it's going to take me to the very top of, like, that hill up there. And I'm going to wait until, like, when it's daytime, when the sun is shining in Mulgore, so I can really show you how gorgeous this place is in the daytime. So I will see you guys when the sun is up next time. So stay tuned.